And then, of course, then this weekend, and look, and I told you this just before we came to start recording. I really appreciated. It's a tough one to thread the needle when you're writing about this, but I really do, and I say this now publicly. I said it to you privately. I thought you really did a nice job of writing and stating why this is important, and what we're talking about here. If you're not aware of this, is on the weekend another player from the 2010 Stanley Cup champion Chicago Blackhawks team, another player from that squad, has filed a lawsuit against the hockey team alleging sexual assault, harassment by Brad Aldrich, who unfortunately became a household name in hockey from Kyle Beach a couple of years ago. And I want you to maybe take us through this here a little bit, Laz. You're very well connected and you've been following this story for a couple of years. So while it may have been a surprise to people like Julian and I'm suspecting for people like you who have been following this, maybe just take us through how this story came to light here.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't technically a new development. It's just a new step in this process. This player is all over the Jenner and Block report that the Blackhawks commissioned that kind of had that very thorough investigation of what went down in 2010. And this player was Black Ace One. For those of you who've put yourself through the trial of reading that very disturbing document, we knew that he had been I guess a target of Brad Aldrich. We just didn't know the extent. In the Jenner and Block report, this player had said, another Black Ace, he had said that he denied that any assault had taken place. But in the past couple of years, as Kyle Beach's story came to light, I think a lot of people now have a better understanding of what constitutes sexual assault, that it might not be exactly what people thought it was beforehand. And with that knowledge and with Beach stepping forward, it gives other people the courage to do so themselves. I mean, if you read the Twitter comments right now, you can see why people are reluctant to come forward with allegations of sexual assault, because they're immediately called, gold diggers and money grabbers and this, that, and the other thing. Nobody would want to be put through that. So this isn't a new development necessarily. It's a new lawsuit, but it's an existing story, an existing player that we've already known about that was in the larger picture of the Kyle Beach lawsuit.
So, because this person was mentioned in the initial report,
and participated in the report, like
yes,
he participated in the report,
right? But is this a situation where the Blackhawks would get more punishment on top of this? Where are we at with that matter?
No, I don't think. I again, because this was already part of the bigger picture that we were always talking about two Black Aces before we even had Kyle Beach's name. It was at least two allegations of this. So I think the punishment, which I know and I largely agree with, wasn't as severe as a lot of people would have wanted it to be. When you see what the Ottawa Senators were punished with for forgetting some paperwork, and what the Arizona Coyotes were punished with for having pre-combine workouts, the $2 million fine, and the ousters of a lot of people that were involved, which wasn't exactly part of the punishment, but was part of the process. That's basically going to be it. What's going to be interesting is we've been talking a lot about Joel Quenneville and Stan Bowman, and they've been working their way back and doing the work behind the scenes. They were invited to the GM and coaches meeting before the season this year to speak on this issue, and it felt like they were getting close to reinstatement. And now that this comes out, you have to wonder if this kind of puts them back on the back burner, if it would be real, because it would be terrible optics, to put, now that we're reminded of all the things Joel Quenneville did to protect Brad Aldrich, including writing like a, great job, buddy, at the end of the season, kind of like recommendation, and let the team let him have his day with the cup. And, it becomes a little unseemly, and they probably will have to sit out a little longer now because of this. That'll be the only ramification.
And I think the crux of your column that landed here in the last day or so, Laz, is there's going to be a lot of people who say, hey, it's a new era in Chicago. It's the Bedard era, and we want to just focus on Connor Bedard and Lucas Reichel and the positive stuff, the upswing, the bright future. For the people that want to do that, what's your message to them about the importance of never forgetting 2010?
Well, it's almost kind of oddly funny in a way, because in the last week or so, I was mulling this column about how the Blackhawks, all of a sudden, they're very likable. Connor Bedard's a really polite, nice, dedicated kid. And Luke Richardson is this forward-thinking coach who everybody really likes. He's this progressive, emotionally honest coach. And there's they got Nick Foligno and Taylor Hall, these likable veterans, and Corey Perry, the guy everybody loves to hate. Now he's on the team, and it's like they almost got likable quicker than they deserve to be. And then this comes all along, and it reminds you, oh yeah, that's why they were kind of pariahs in the league among the fan base for a while. And it's cognitive dissonance. It's two things that are true. This current iteration of the team is both exciting and likable, but this is still the same franchise that committed unforgivable acts, in the modern era, just 13 years ago. And yeah, none of those people are with the organization anymore. They've cleaned house from 2010. None of the players, Taves and Kane are gone even. There's no real ties to that team anymore, but you don't get to get away scot-free just like that. It's not that easy. And it does a disservice to Kyle Beach and to John Doe, Black Ace One, to just say, you know what, I'm bored of this story. I don't want to hear about it anymore. It does a disservice to them, and it's the old, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. It's important that we remember them, not just because they had to give up their own dignity and humanity for so long, hiding in the shadows from this, but also to make sure that the Black Danny Wirtz and Jamie Faulkner continue to do the things to create safeguards and avenues for reporting. And Kyle Davidson's involved in that too. It's important that we remember it so that we keep fixing it, because it's not fixed yet. We haven't cured hockey culture. It was 9 years ago, according to John Doe, that he was being chased around the rink by a Blackhawk player and being called the F word and asking about, how the blowjob was with Brad Aldrich. That was 9 years ago. That is not distant history. That is very much, recent history. And it's important that we remember that was still going on. Even if it's gotten better, and God, I hope it's getting better. I think it's getting better. It's important not to forget that, so that we don't backslide back to the way it was just 10 years ago.
Not to double back, but I'm glad you said what you said about the punishment for Chicago in comparison to other teams. I know Ian and I have talked about it on the show before. We tried to explain why it's not the ideal comparison to look at what happened with Chicago compared to what Ottawa went through last week. But at the same time, this is still a situation that no matter how you slice it, people, especially hockey fans, they're going to compare what Chicago went through compared to some of those other teams. And especially with these new details coming to light, they're still going to ask the questions about why Chicago gets to be this likable team and gets to thrive with Connor Bedard when we're still dealing with the ramifications of 2010. There are still people who, I know your answer about Joel Quenneville and Stan Bowman is probably ultimately the case with them coming back. There's still a section of fans who are just counting down the days until they eventually get that second chance back, because it does happen where people who might not be deserving of second chances ultimately get that second chance, whether they have to wait a year, 2 years, 5 years, whenever. So I just wanted, it's less of a question, more just of me just acknowledging acknowledging the elephant in the room that, this team, this Chicago team, as much as they're trying to make progress on the ice with just being distant from 2010, there's still so much work that needs to be done.
And to their credit, we spoke, Scott Powers and I spoke with Danny Wirtz last year on the 1 year anniversary of the Jenner and Block report. And he never said Kyle Beach's name, but we were obviously hammering home questions on the topic. And he said it colors everything we do. The memory of what happened then colors everything that they do. And the culture they're trying to create. And, it's too early to know if it's, to know if it's working. We have to take them at their word right now, which is always hard to do with anyone in the corporate world, let alone, in this team culture that, given what happened 13 years ago, we take them at their word. From what we see, I tend to buy it. I believe them. But that's a long and arduous process to build that kind of culture, just like it takes a long time to build the right kind of culture on a team, which the Blackhawks are trying to do on the ice. They had a team meeting after their loss yesterday because they're trying to build the right culture and they don't feel they have it right now. It takes even longer to do that in the corporate world. To really, it's kind of glacial. There's a lot of inertia there, and it's really hard to change the way things have done. John McDonough left an imprint on that organization that's still felt today, the way it's run. And you can see his fingerprints everywhere still. And it's going to take time for them to do all the things that they're promising to do. And right now, all we can do is remind them of their promises and hold them accountable for actually doing it.
Yeah. And again, encourage all of our listeners and viewers to check out Laz's column as you celebrate Blackhawks' bright future. Don't lose sight of a painful past. Again, I think you said it so well there.